Your Best Manager, Episode 74.
People have huge, enormous lives. They need to go to a workplace that cares about them because for some people, it's the only place they go in their life where someone cares. Offer them that as a leader, and they will be loyal and incredible.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Your Best Manager podcast, featuring interviews with senior managers and leadership experts, as well as practical advice for first-time managers. And after today's show, be sure to hop over to yourbestmanager.com and check out the free management course, Fully Engaged in 10 Days, where you will learn 3 critical components to increasing employee engagement on your team. Have fun! Are you focused on the 90%? This is Jamie Newman here, and I'm excited to be joined by Darci Lang today. Darci, how are you doing?
I'm great.
Awesome. I'm super happy to have you on the show. Darci Lang is an inspiring motivational speaker who specializes in assisting organizations by creating a new philosophy within the workforce. Focus on the 90%, affecting change, solutions, innovation, and leadership. She challenges participants to look in the mirror and reflect on the positives in life, what we have, what we can change, and how our focus affects those around us at work and in our personal lives. Darci is a professional speaker, a best-selling author, a blogger, a wife, and a mom to 2 teenage children. She has won the Saskatchewan Woman Entrepreneur of the Year Award, Achieving Business Excellence Award, been a finalist in the Canadian Women Entrepreneur of the Year Awards, and 9 other nationally recognized business excellence awards. And I had the privilege of hearing Darci speak about a year ago. I think it was in Calgary. It's guaranteed in Calgary, definitely in Calgary. We just talked about that. And Darci was, of course, an excellent and engaging speaker that evening. And I also got the chance to meet her, and I have no idea, Darci, what we actually talked about. And as I said before, I have your business card, and I remembered meeting you. And it's super cool to just see this thing come full circle and to hear someone speak and then get a chance to interview them on the Your Best Manager podcast. So welcome to the show. And why don't you kick things off by taking a moment to give us an overview of, your career path and just how you got to where you are today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Jamie, for having me. I'll start at the very beginning. I'm 48 years old, and I was born to young parents. And my father actually got full custody of me in the early 70s, which was a little unheard of back then. And my father raised me and runs a Volkswagen repair shop. Mm-hmm. So the really cool thing is my career started back then, working with my dad. So I started there working with my dad. I did the typical working retail during high school, which I so recommend people should have to do that. Work retail, wait a table or pump gas at least once in their life.
Absolutely.
And then those are incredible experiences.
I'm a former McDonald's employee, and so is my wife. And my wife's a former retail person. And the work ethic, the customer experience, the ability to deal with people, you learn so much through those experiences.
Agreed. And when I meet young people who say, I'm just working at McDonald's, I say, don't change the words to I get to, because those are experiences you'll have for the rest of your life. Yeah. Agreed. So I had those great hard work experiences working in the garage and retail. And then when I was 18, I moved away from home because I was going to change the world with $200 in my pocket and my dad then a perfectly reconditioned Volkswagen Beetle. And I moved from Edmonton in Canada here to Winnipeg. And I got a job at a tuxedo rental company.
Wait, why Winnipeg?
Well,
that's the last place I'd want to move. It's so cold there.
I had no money, and I had to make sure I wasn't going to starve. And I had an aunt there I could live with for a month just to kick things off. So that's my Winnipeg story. But I got to Winnipeg, and I got a job at a tuxedo rental company. Mm-hmm. Because of my name, Darci, they thought back in the days of filling out an application form, they thought I would be a young man. And I'd worked for my dad in the Volkswagen garage, and I had also worked retail. So this resume comes on the desk of HR in this tuxedo company, and they call me in for an interview. And literally, Jamie, the minute I walked in, the HR manager said, okay, sorry, stop, you can't come in. We thought you were going to be a young man based on your name and all your experience, so you're just going to have to leave. And I said, because we don't hire young women. Back in the day, in the late 80s, they didn't hire young women in the tuxedo business. And I said, how about you just give me a 20-minute interview, and if in the end you change your mind, we can talk. And I got the job, and I bought the company, a portion of the company, my own store, when I was 24 years old.
Wow.
So, but this thing is, I worked with 5 men who'd been in the industry a combined 125 years. Jamie, they were my university.
Yeah.
No one in my family's been to university, no money, no expectation. And I'll tell you what, these men every day would say, what can I teach you today?
Wow.
And I bought the company from them. Yeah, it was incredible.
That
So when
is
I was
cool.
24, I bought my own store. And I moved my store from Winnipeg to Regina, Saskatchewan, where I live now, 24 years ago. So I was 24 years ago, and I opened my own little tuxedo store, which got a lot of media attention in Regina because that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And my bank manager, so then this leads me to my second career. So my bank manager, Ed, on his 38th year of banking, leaving the banking industry, became my mentor and my friend. And Ed said, I would like you to come into the bank and tell everybody your story. I want you to speak at our next staff meeting. And I was 24. I certainly wasn't shy. I loved to talk. And I had this really cool philosophy, this focus on the 90% idea, which I can tell you more about, Jamie, as we go on. But
Yeah.
I told Ed about what makes me happy and how I stay positive and remember people's names and all those things. And he said, come and share that with my staff. So 24 years ago, I delivered my first presentation in a downtown bank here in my home city. And that led to the 24-year career I have today. Then, a month later, I opened my own bridal wedding trade show because I had the tuxedo business.
Yeah.
I was new in town. Nobody would let me in with my tuxedos into their current bridal show. And I thought, well, that's no good. I have a dance background. Again, I love to talk and MC. So I opened my very first bridal fair, like a wedding trade show. You remember,
Yeah.
Jamie, from your wedding
Yeah.
planning days.
Yeah.
And so now we have the biggest show in Saskatchewan for 24 years.
If you can't join them, beat them. Wait, that's not it.
Amen. So it was an incredible time 24 years ago. So that's kind of how I started out. And then I sold my tuxedo store 17 years ago to stay home with my daughter, Jada, who is 16, and our son, John, who's 14. And then I was able to run, like your wife does, my business from my home. So I became a full-time speaker and of course, we still have the bridal show. So that's my career path.
Wow. Well, congratulations on building a successful and rewarding and free and learning type of career, Darci. And here's the big question, though, for today's interview. And maybe the answer to this is going to be Ed, but it could be someone else. So when you look back on your career, who was your best manager? And of course, it doesn't have to be a manager. It could be a mentor. So who's had the most significant influence on your career and why?
Well, I have to rewind again and say that my dad was a big influence on how I run my business because my dad was, knew everybody's name. He treated everybody so kindly. When the young people came in for an oil change with their first Volkswagen Beetle and they couldn't pay for the oil change, my dad would take the time to show them how to do it themselves. So he really taught me that it's not all about making a buck. It's about making relationships and really caring about the people that you served. So I definitely go back to there. Ed was a huge influence on me. I'm forever indebted to Ed to ask me for that first speaking engagement. It literally led to this huge 24-year career. And Ed had the same base as my father has. He was kind to everybody. I was a young 24-year-old customer of his begging him for money, Jamie. I mean, I was as young as his granddaughter at the time, right?
Yep.
But there was something about that man. He always made me feel special and important. And when I came into the bank, he made me feel like I just bought a $10 million company, right? So that was really important. I learned a lot from Ed about treat everybody kindly throughout that. And then, of course, as I've already shared with you, getting into the tuxedo business, I worked with these 5 people all day, every day, who had this incredible source of knowledge. So I learned from them, knowledge is power if you share it. And I also learned from them, Jamie, that, people say to me all the time, and our youth, they don't know how to work. I'm sure you hear that being young, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure your millennials listening to this feel like people think you don't know how to work, you don't know anything. Do you know what I say? Who's teaching them, Jamie?
Yeah.
Who's teaching them? When they come into their companies, do we take the young people aside and say, what can I do to help you today? What can I do to help your career? Or do we say, give it time, you'll end up just like me, right? So I think that those men were a big influence on me in the fact that they taught me that knowledge is power, and they taught me that when the youth come in to your group, you have a huge responsibility to nurture and take care of them. And I take that very seriously to this day, Jamie. I am forever mentoring young women and young people to help them on their path. They're good. You millennials are brilliant, incredible people, and we need to learn from you, and we need to share our knowledge.
Whoa, there's a lot of stuff in there. I took down so many notes, and one of the things I really want to make sure I go back to, and you said it right off the bat, something that your dad showed you, knowing people's names, and I've got to ask, because you had already referenced it yourself earlier, but why does that mean so much? I mean, I think back to my first corporate job. One of the best things that was done for me is I was handed the book "How to Win Friends and Influence People" by Dale Carnegie, and I remember that one of those chapters was about, hey, you need to know people's names and use it. But why do you think that is so powerful as a leader or as a manager to just pay attention to someone's name?
Well, can I tell you a story that goes with that, Jamie?
Yeah, please.
Okay, when I was 18 years old and I was at this tuxedo rental company, 18 years old, a month out of high school, I was empowered by this management group to go on the road and deliver tuxedos to menswear stores. Can you imagine packing up a van and your wares, literally W-A-R-E-S, right?
Yeah.
Not W-E-A-R-S.
Right.
So I would go and take my wares, and I would go to menswear stores and say, would you like to rent tuxedos from me? Unbelievable. Like, it was the most incredible experience. And one of the gentlemen's stores that I would visit was a third-generation menswear store. And the man who ran it, his name was Walter. And Walter was a god. I couldn't believe him. Every time I went to his store, I watched his magic. He would know everyone's name that came in, what they bought the last time. He knew their measurements. I was just amazed by this man. In small town Saskatchewan, running this place like I've never seen before. So when they all left, his customers, I said, Walter, I have to know how you do that. And he said, I'll teach you. And I said, teach me, because I think that's going to change my life.
Yep.
The ability to do what you do. And he said, are you ready? I said, I'm ready. So I had my yellow paper, because we used to write notes. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
I had my yellow notepad, and he said, I care.
Yeah.
And I drove home that day, Jamie, thinking, well, that was stupid. How is that going to help me? How's that going to help me? I care. What does that mean? But that man's words are in my head 30 years later. And I think about that, Jamie, when I meet you. Do I care? Did I listen to Christina's name? Did I listen to your boys 4 and 1? I care. So if you're going to ask people their name, care about listening to them.
Yep.
And we worry so much about our response. We become competitive. Our ego gets in the way. Just wipe the slate clean. Go over to somebody and say, my name is Darci, and care about what they say. It'll work. And it's just so important because it shows people you care.
Yeah, and when you care, you're going to put in the work. I still remember, and I already mentioned I used to work at McDonald's, but one of the most impressive things, and this was my first job ever, and it wasn't have been my first day on the job, but somewhere within the first week. So our owner would come in every Saturday and work alongside all of us, which is impressive in and of itself. But I remember the first time I met him, he walked up to me and said, "Hi, Jamie." And I was blown away because I don't think he had a photo of me. And so beyond that, I mean, I don't know how many people worked at McDonald's, maybe like 80. And so he had taken the time, again, because he cared. If you don't care about something, you're not going to put in the effort. But he took the time to look over the shift chart, find out the positions where everyone was assigned and their names, and memorize them so that when he walked in, he would be able to greet each person by name. And you know what? It made me feel really special. So you're right. Although it sounds very simple, you care. There's a lot that goes into it, because when you care, you're going to put in the work, right?
Well, absolutely. And if I can add a couple of other layers to that, Jamie, is it also shows that you're genuine. Because the thing about being a motivational speaker is people assume that you're going to be fake. and they assume that you just put on this show. But the ability to being genuine and authentic is so important to me. Like, we motivational speakers have to live authentically congruent with what we preach.
Yeah.
And those of us who do, we have longevity. Those who live, incongruent with how they speak, they don't last. So we live, I am what I preach. I am totally what I preach at Costco as I am on stage. So the number one thing is it proves you are genuine in the world, not just been to a seminar and learned how to remember names.
Right.
And the second thing is the subconscious is a powerful tool. So if you've told yourself, which many of your listeners have, I'm terrible at names, I'm terrible at names, well, then you actually program your subconscious to say that you are. So stop telling yourself that and say, I'm awesome at names. I am awesome at names, Jamie. Like, I'm awesome at them. And so that's really important to me. It's authentic. It's genuine. I care. But I also have told myself that enough times. So I just encourage your listeners to stop telling the story, I'm terrible. Well, of course you are then. Stop saying that.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy. Love it.
Right.
Now, something else you mentioned very, very briefly, and I want to dive into it a little bit because I think it leads to a mistake many managers and leaders make. But you said knowledge is power if you share it. And I mean, you emphasized the if you share it because there is a temptation to just think knowledge is power. And I don't know whether that's just like an old school way of thinking knowledge is power, but one of the things that I find is oftentimes managers or leaders are maybe afraid to give too much of their knowledge because they want to be seen as knowledgeable, and they feel like if they're not the only one with the answers, they can't be seen that way. Do you understand what I'm saying there? Like I'm just wondering why you think people don't share the knowledge they have. Maybe that's the question I'm asking.
Well, yeah, we only need 3 other calls for that. But I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of belief systems in that. I think there's insecurities in that. I think there's ego involved in that. And I think if you're going to get into a leadership position and care about people and lead future people or people now, it goes back to caring. And if you genuinely care about people, you would genuinely want them to do well, and you will be constantly asking, what's my role in them doing well? And if it's sharing my knowledge, then that's what you need to do. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Why did you get it if you're not going to share it? It's insane. So I think it's really important that people, even as a motivational speaker, I mentor young motivational speakers all the time. I tell them everything I've learned, everything I know. I share templates of my contracts, my everything. Because why would I have learned all this for what? To put it in my coffin someday, Jamie? Like, really? Let's share what we know. It's just karma. It's really important to do that.
Yeah.
So why they don't do it? I think it's an individual thing, but I think it's ego. I think it's power. Don't lead from that place then. It's a really difficult place to lead from. People don't feel empowered and cared for then.
All right, so I've got another question then. We're totally off script. We are not going to get through the questions I had planned, but this is fun.
Welcome to a speaker on your call.
I love it. You've talked a lot, and our conversation's gone a lot where the driving force behind a lot of these good ideas, good practices, good behaviors come from genuinely caring about people. So the question is a little bit maybe tongue-in-cheek, what if I don't care about people? Or maybe a better question would be, what if I just don't think I'm a people person? I want to care. But I'm not a people person. Like, how do I behave a way that seems unnatural?
Okay.
There's a lot
in there. You really
in there.
want the answer? You want really the answer to this? If you're not a people person, please don't lead them. It's going to be really tough. It's going to be a very difficult thing to pretend you care about people and you like them when you really don't. And when people say to me in my presentation, I'm not much of a people person, I say, please don't serve them for a living then. Like, please don't try to do that. Because haven't we all been served by somebody who shouldn't be serving a table?
Absolutely.
Right on. So what's the difference between me, who's eaten 1,000 restaurants in my life? What's the difference between the serving staff who you leave like that was unbelievable and the ones who drag themselves to the table? So what's the difference in that, Jamie, is people pick something that had something to do with their personality. How could you teach a serving staff who doesn't like people to pretend you like them when they come to the table? Does it make them any better of a server, Jamie?
Not at all.
Right. So don't do it. I have to say, sorry, millennials that are listening, that you did it and you don't really care about them, but it's going to be really tough. But if you're stuck and you have to do it and you have to stay, then I say this, Jamie. The journey to like people more is to like yourself more. And as my Lululemon bag says, your direct outward appearance and how you see others is in direct reflection to how you see yourself. So if you're not a people person, you don't really care about them, and we sat on an airplane together for 2 hours, by the end of the flight, I'd say, do you care about yourself?
Yeah.
Because when my friends say my staff are not happy, I say, are you? Mm-hmm. Are you showing them what it looks like to be happy, motivated, and excited to come to work? Or are you asking them to be something you're not? So I think it's going to be really... Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard, Jamie. It's going to be really hard to lead them from a place of not caring about them, because look at your McDonald's manager, leaves an impact on you. How many years later by doing simple caring basics well? That's all we're asking people to do. Just care about them. People come to us broken. They do, Jamie. Yep. They have big, huge, even these people say, well, young people don't have problems. Oh, my Lord. I meet thousands of people a year, thousands of millennials. People have huge, enormous lives. They need to go to a workplace that cares about them, because for some people, it's the only place they go in their life where someone cares. Offer them that as a leader, and they will be loyal and incredible. I've had the same admin assistant work with me for 24 years, Jamie. In my bridal show, I have people that work for us for 15, 17 years. I'm not that outstanding of a leader, I can tell you that, but I care a lot about them.
That was like such a good answer. And if you're listening, you have to hit the rewind or step back or whatever, skip back. Because I don't think, I'm going to flatter you for a second. I don't think you could have answered that question any better. Because first of all, you called it what it is. I mean, hey, if you don't love what you're doing, change what you're doing. And I don't know if you've seen or read, there's a recent article, I think in New York Times, that Susan Cain wrote saying... basically saying that the world doesn't need everybody to be a leader. There's a drive, or it's admirable, or when you think of schools and job interviews, everywhere it's plastered, we want leaders. And not everybody is meant to be a leader. And I don't want to make it seem like not everybody is capable, but it goes back to if you are not an extroverted want to be front of the class, don't try to be. And do what you want to be doing. If you don't love what you're doing, change what you're doing. But you didn't just leave it there, because you said, but hey, if you want to change, if you want to grow, if you want to be better, you got to look in the mirror. And I think that that's so important. It's something foundational that when I talk to a first-time manager, like, you've got to check yourself before you go in the door each morning. Because how can you possibly expect your employees to be motivated, engaged, and want to give 100% when you're walking in not wanting to do those things? So, you hit both sides of that corkscrew of a question. It was just so good. So thank you.
Thank you. And can I add to it, of course, a couple of things that you said there?
Yes.
About the Susan Cain article, can I say that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so when I mentor millennials, which I do all the time, and they say, I want to move up in my company, I want to buy something, I want to whatever. You know what the biggest question I challenge them is? Why do you want to do it? Why? Like, dig deep, spend time on a park bench, and just why? Because if it's to prove to your mom you could be something, or the natural evolution, it's not going to work. It has to come from a place of wanting to make a bigger, profound difference.
Yep.
And when I hear people in line at, I keep saying Costco, but for the sake of example, when I hear people in line at the grocery store, and I hear two people say, you know what, I was leading the people and I had to leave. I had to go back and work on the floor. I tap them on the shoulder. I say, I'm sorry I'm listening to what you're saying, but good on you. Because why would you stay if you're burned out and tired? And then I want to add to one more thing you said, Jamie, about extroverts.
Hmm.
Not all extroverts make very good managers.
That's true.
I know, introverts make great managers because they tend to slow it down, not like you and I. Blah, 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 blah. They tend to bring it down. They tend to be way more relaxed, way more plugged in. They know names better than us, and they're a little more in tune. So I don't think extroverts definitely need to lead. I think we steamroll our employees sometimes. So I say this. I meet my people where they need to be. So if some people don't want me to be really really outgoing, some want me to dial it down. So I actually have a little bit of an attitude meter, and I dial it up and down for whoever's in front of me. I become who they need me to be. And that creates the genuine peace.
Yep.
Because not everybody wants the big greeting every morning. Some people need, just meet them where they're at. Your your McDonald's manager coming in, knowing your name, that just brought it all down to real, didn't it?
Yep, absolutely.
And if he would have came flying in, come on, everybody, hey, I'm your owner, come on, everybody, high five, and you'd all be rolling your eyes like, ugh, he's in Saturday. But this way, you made it excited, right? You were excited he was in on Saturday because you knew he was real.
Yeah. So much good stuff, and we could
I'll
probably
let
talk
you
about
ask
this for forever, but we will run out of time. But honestly, I hope that if you're listening to today, that you're challenged to I guess reflect on why do what you do, and why go through the challenges. 'Cause, I mean, the other side of it, I mean, leadership is not easy. And it's tough. It can be lonely. It requires a lot of self-development. It can be mentally and physically draining sometimes, and you got to learn. Why on earth would you want to do that? And again, as you said, if you're just doing it because someone told you it's the right thing to do, that's not a good reason. It's not saying that you shouldn't pursue it, but you need to have a good reason for it. So again, I keep talking about something I wanted to stop talking about. So anyway, we're going to keep moving on, and we're going to actually jump into today. Darci, why don't you tell us something exciting happening in your world right now, and maybe tell us a little bit more about this whole 90% thing.
Absolutely. So my message is my belief that we hold this big imaginary magnifying glass out in front of us in our lives, and we have a choice what we focus it on, what I call the 90%, the positive aspects of our life, or the not so positive 10%. So what's exciting for me is this is my 24th year. So I'm 48. So for half my life, I've been a motivational speaker. So it's a really cool, exciting year for me because I want to do a lot around that because that's very cool. So what I'm going to say to bridge to what you just said, Jamie, as leaders, we need to take our magnifying glass and focus on the 90%, the things we enjoy the most about leadership. You said it's not easy, it's hard, it's lonely, it's all these things. Agreed. That's what I call the 10%, Jamie.
Yep.
And if we tell the story of leadership from the place of the 10%, the isolation, the hard work, the employees that are going to make life difficult for us, that's going to affect the man and woman at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So I challenge people to change the story of the way they talk about leadership by focusing on the 90%. I've tired, depleting, exhausting portions of being a motivational speaker, but 90% of it is amazing. And I have learned in a lot of years that if I tell that story on an airplane that I have a dream job, it changes my molecular structure. I believe that, to go out into the world and just talk about the things I can control, the things I love. So please make sure, my millennial friends that are listening, and all of you that are listening, that when people pull up a lawn chair beside you at a barbecue and say, what do you do? Make sure you've got a line there that tells people how proud you are to lead others. That's the story that we need to tell. So I'm excited about everything right now, Jamie, because I'm 48. I have the energy of a 30-year-old like you. I get up in the morning blessed to have this job. My license plate says thankful because I'm just so grateful to have this, and I'm just feel grateful to feel this excited about it still.
Well, I love that philosophy, and obviously, if anyone is looking for a speaker for an event, they definitely need to connect with you because it's just so powerful. And I mean, there is such a temptation to focus on that 10% and get down on ourselves. And I mean, that's what, ironically, that's one of the reasons why this is called the Your Best Manager podcast. And I sometimes get a lot of pushback because I'll invite people on and sometimes people will send me an email ahead of time or ask a question, be like, I haven't had very many good bosses. And it's just, I mean, you ask a crowd full of people, everyone can point out a bad boss. And sometimes it's difficult to point out good bosses. Now, does that mean there aren't good bosses? And does that mean that the bad bosses are 100% bad? Not at all. But I mean, the point of this show is to recognize the impact you can have on a leader, but also think back and be thankful and grateful for the people that have come into your life, despite how hard it may have been at the time. It made you a better person because they pushed you, they challenged you, they made you uncomfortable. I mean, some of my best bosses ticked me off. Their 10% ticked me off, but the rest of their message was 90% what I needed to hear. And so I just love that philosophy, and I absolutely love what you're doing, Darci. We are going to totally run out of time, though, so it is time to say goodbye. But if I'm listening right now and I want more about this, I want to connect with you. You've got a book that you've written as well. Is that correct?
You bet.
So, hey, how do I find you? Where do I connect with you? If I want you to speak at my event, how do I reach out?
Okay, well, firstly, I only speak in Canada. I don't go to the U.S. That's a 10% story, but I can only speak in Canada. My book is available everywhere, of course, Amazon. You can go to my website. I'm Darci with an I, so DarciLang.com. And again, I just want to encourage everybody, just take your magnifying glass, go out and just tell that story. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be in a good mood. And it's okay to I just want to give them permission to just tell it from that place. You said, we learn from our 10% people. We have a choice where we came from, Jamie. We can become where we came from, or the total opposite. We can become the manager we worked for, or the total opposite person. That's our choice by what we see. So if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it, DarciLang.com.
Awesome. Now, your book is sold outside of Canada, though, correct?
Oh, of course. Yeah, you can go on Amazon, and it's focus on the 90%.
Love it. Awesome. Well, I will put those links as well as the link to your book in the show notes, which are available at yourbestmanager.com. Actually, you know what? I do want to make sure I ask this one last question, if that's all right. We'll be really quick with it. But is there another book aside from your own that you'd recommend that leaders and first-time managers pick up, especially if they're wanting to, I guess, build the right foundation from day one?
Not particularly. I think before we ever start reading leadership books, we need to read self-improvement. Get yourself so full, mentally, physically, and spiritually, that you can lead from the place of fullness, not depletion. That would be my goal. Spend a year doing that. Spend a year reading everything that makes you the best version of yourself, and leadership will just come that much easier for you.
I think that's great advice. Do you have a self-development book you'd recommend then? If I put you on the spot?
I love 4 agreements. I say go get 4 agreements, start with that, and then just start Googling, start podcasts, start listening to everything that's going to make you a better human being.
Love it. And that book has been recommended a couple times on the show, so definitely check that out. Awesome. Well, that is everything we have for today. Again, I'll put everything that we talked about in the show notes, which are available at yourbestmanager.com. And it's really easy because you can just search Darci, and that's DARCI, from the homepage, and find everything from today's episode. And managers, I'm not sure if you're traveling to or from work, getting a workout in, or simply taking some time to relax and listen today, but I hope that you've been encouraged and inspired from our conversation with Darci Lang. Darci, thanks again for sharing some of your story with the next generation of leaders. I truly appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Jamie, thank you for asking.
All right, everyone, that does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Now hop over to yourbestmanager.com and take advantage of the free tools, resources, and training which I've created exclusively for you, the next generation of leaders. Oh, and have fun.